September 24, 1988, the world witnessed something extraordinary. A man named Ben Johnson ran 100 until it wasn't. 3 days later, the same man was stripped of everything. This is the story of how the fastest man on earth fell in just 55 hours. Ben Johnson was born in Falmouth, Jamaica in 1961 and moved to Canada at age 14. A quiet, skinny kid who stuttered and didn't even look like a sprinter. But he had something in him. Speed. Raw, untamed speed. In 1987, he did the unthinkable. He beat Carl Lewis, the reigning Olympic champion, American icon, and golden boy of track and field. But Johnson didn't just win, he demolished Carl Lewis. Heading into the 1988 Olympic Games in Seoul, the 100-meter final was already hyped as the most stacked lineup in history. Reigning Olympic champion Carl Lewis was the favorite, clean-cut, explosive, and dominant. But his arch nemesis, Ben Johnson, the reigning world champion, had recently run a 9.83 world record at the 1987 World Championships. When the gun went off, Johnson exploded out of the blocks like a rocket. His start was electric, and he led from step one. By 60 meters, he was already a full stride ahead. He crossed the line in 9.79 seconds, a time so fast it shattered the world record and left Carl Lewis in disbelief. Seoul 1988 was his moment. The world was watching. Canada was hoping. The rivalry with Lewis was front-page drama. And Johnson, he looked unstoppable. Behind him, Lewis finished second in 9.92 seconds. But the post-race celebrations quickly soured. Within 48 hours, Johnson tested positive for stanozolol, and his gold was stripped. Johnson was vilified, but the race revealed the extent to which performance-enhancing drugs had saturated the sport of sprinting. Even the so-called clean athletes were later questioned. September 27, 3 days after his greatest victory, the news broke. Ben Johnson had tested positive for steroids. Journalists were woken up at 4 a.m. Headlines exploded. The Olympic Village was in chaos. By the time most people had their morning coffee, Johnson was already being rushed out of Seoul on a plane. The nation of Canada, who had just celebrated his win with patriotic pride, turned on him overnight. The bigger problem? Of the 8 men in the 100-meter final, 6 were later linked to doping in some form. Carl Lewis himself tested positive for banned stimulants during the US Olympic trials, but got a free pass. Dennis Mitchell blamed unusually high testosterone levels on beer and sexy time. Ben Johnson wasn't clean, but he wasn't alone either. Journalist Mary Ormsby, who was there in Seoul, said it wasn't just the drugs that brought Johnson down. It was the way he became a convenient scapegoat. He later admitted to taking steroids, but not stanozolol. He said his coach suggested it because everyone else was doing it. Ben Johnson became the poster boy for cheating in sports. His downfall was meant to cleanse the sport, but instead it exposed the rot underneath. Since then, we've seen doping scandals rock Russia, America, and Jamaica. Even Usain Bolt, the undisputed king of sprinting, has had to answer the same skeptical question. Ben Johnson never got his medal back, but he never truly disappeared either. He's still fighting to clear his name, still telling his story. In 2013, he returned to the very stadium where it all began to unfurl a giant anti-doping petition. 25 years later and still in the headlines. Because no matter what the record books say, people still recognize him. The world's fastest man who changed everything. Was Ben Johnson the villain or just a fall guy? Nevertheless, Seoul 1988 was the dirtiest race in Olympic history.